How's it going, my man?
Hey, welcome aboard. Today is October 8th, 2020. This is the Crushing Iron Podcast, episode 415.
You sure?
No, but whatever. Who cares if we have two 415s and skip 416? I mean, listen,
I know. It's just the next one.
It doesn't matter. It's just the next one.
Just today. It's all we have.
Today. It's just the one we have. It's being consistent. That's what we do. We come to you twice a week. We always have. We always will, at least until we can't do this anymore, which hopefully is not for like the next 30 years. But that's what we do. We appreciate you tuning in today. If it's your first time listening, thank you. We know you have a lot of options and opportunities for other triathlon and just general podcasts out there, and that your time is valuable. Mike and I are both coaches and athletes. Have been doing this collectively for around 30 years. So we have a lot of experience, not just in triathlon, but in life. And that's really actually what the podcast is about. It's about triathlon and life. We do cover in-depth topics, swim, bike, run, which I think we'll get into today as we do some Q&A from our closed Facebook group. But for the most part, Mike and I just sit back and have an open, honest discussion about what we're personally going through in life and in triathlon, how they both intersect and kind of weave in and out of each other, and hopefully provide you with examples and our own personal experiences, and then some information for you to apply it to your own life. Don't take everything we say and cut and paste it. We're not professionals. We're not experts. We definitely never provide hacks. And our own agenda is to kind of keep you happy and healthy and enjoy this, what is a really awesome sport. But just like any sport in life in general, it has its obstacles and areas to find yourself kind of making mistakes and pitfalls. And if we can help you avoid those in any way, then we'll consider this podcast a success.
Yes, we will. And you said, hopefully we can do it for the next 30 years. I did a little quick arithmetic in my head. And that puts me right at puts me up there, dude. If I'm still rolling then.
Well, you probably will be rolling in a wheelchair. But if you're, listen, with technology, there is no reason why I can't be here at the hub and you can't be in a home and we can't do our podcast that way.
I'm going to have to up my collagen intake here.
Yeah, we're really going to have to change. Who knows what's going to happen in the next 20 or 30 years. We could take a pause for like 2 years and we could like cryo freeze you and then take like 40 years off your life and you come back actually being younger than me. That could be a thing.
I've got some new secrets I'm working on.
It sounds like a bulletproof guy. It sounds like something he would come up with and then try to sell you. Either him or Ben Greenfield.
Everybody's so like obsessed with like living forever, and I think that's kind of weird, but whatever.
I 100% agree with you.
Oh, you do? Okay,
yes.
Good.
Like I don't want to live forever. Like, because if you live forever, then what's the point of what you're doing right now? Because then you're like, I'm going to live forever. Like, what's the point in doing anything? I can get around to it whenever. And the next thing you're like, well, you have this conversation with the kids like, well, Johnny, for the last 400 years, you've been putting off going to college. Like, what are you really trying to do with your life? But yeah, I don't have any desire to, as much as I love life, I want to, seize it, do the best I can with what I have, and hopefully leave a little bit of a piece of me along the way to help out the next generation. And that's hopefully what we can do today. As I kind of talked about earlier in the opening, we cover a lot of things, and occasionally we hop into we have a Facebook group called Crushing Iron Group. If you want to hop in there and be a part of a really awesome group of people with varying experience levels. We've got coaches in there, we've got professional athletes in there, we've got age groupers from every end of experience level and athletic ability, from Ironman winners to people who finish in the 16, 17 hour range, and everyone's willing and open to answering your questions. So there is no such thing as a stupid question. And so ask them, chip away. And, if you want to be in it, answer a simple question, we'll let you in. But there's a lot of great people in there. You won't get, really harsh, sarcastic feedback that's, to put you down like you can find in a lot of other groups. Because frankly, if that does happen, then I delete and block the person with like 2 seconds. So
pretty good at that, man.
I am. I've got a quick hook, a very quick hook. And today, go ahead.
I just thought
no. We're moving on. No.
Okay. I mean, I've got hundreds of years to go.
That's right.
So, I just thought we'd mention the club again, since we just launched the new training package for next year, which is 2021, which includes November and December kind of off-season training. So we'll basically set you up for the rest of this year, starting November, and all of next year up through your A race and all that kind of stuff. We get you in the online hub. But you get a full training package or plan for your A race and then beyond, maybe depending on when you're racing. But check that out. It's at
It's at C26Triathlon.com, and because we had a question, I think, in the Facebook group, but you can go to C26Triathlon.com, click on the coaching tab, scroll down, click on the C26 Club, and then it will give you all the info on what's provided, how to sign up, how to pay, the kind of a brief recap of what you get when you get access to the online hub, which are videos, Zoom calls, all kinds of things we put together for you to consume, and then kind of goes over your off-season plan for the rest of 2020, including the Zoom calls you get in the future, our athlete onboarding guide, access to team events, a beginner's guide, you name it. We've got it there. So go there if you have any additional questions. Outside of that, you can always reach out to Mike directly. He's the manager of that. He is at crushingiron@gmail.com.
Was that what
team manager?
Was it manager? What was the other thing I used to be?
I don't remember. But they do. They make up like a really, extraordinary names for things that people do now. It's like you're no longer the trash guy, but you're like the
sanitation
engineer. Expert and engineer. Yeah. Which I do have to give, if you're a sanitation expert, my son Hayden loves you. He is going to be, I think, a garbage man for Halloween this year. He waits outside if he can for the garbage man to come every Monday.
He likes those trucks, man.
He does. He loves the trucks, and our garbage man loves Hayden too because he honks every time he comes. And if Hayden's like not there, he asks. He's like, "Dude, where's he at?" Like he's usually here and there. He has like such a soft spot for people who do that kind of work. I think it was last week. Last week we had a mail truck catch fire in our neighborhood. I'm talking like it inferno. Like I pulled up from grabbing I was heading home to pick up Allie and Hayden to go out to eat, and I looked to the left down the other end of the cul-de-sac, and I saw like fire trucks and ambulance. I'm thinking, whatever, it's somebody, had like, something happened to them. It's, kind of an overblown, whatever. I'm not on our neighborhood Facebook page because I hate it because everybody just, bitches and complains about the most meaningless thing.
You don't like that, huh?
I don't. And then Allie's got a picture of me. I posted that it was just driving, and our mail lady Stacy was driving the post office truck, and it just blew up in flames out of nowhere, which is apparently a known problem because the United States Postal Service hasn't replenished their fleet since 1984, which shouldn't be much of a shock to me. But anyway, Hayden left a note in our mailbox for our mail lady Stacy because he was incredibly concerned that she was injured. Like I think he lost sleep over it. And so he was very nice and left her a note in his mailbox. And then the next day she left him a note as well. That's on our refrigerator. So he has a soft spot for our government and public workers. He's a good, solid soul.
That's really nice.
Yeah,
man.
He's a lot kinder than I am. But today, I would have to say, like I scrolled through these questions. We're going to go through it. And again, this will probably have to be a 2-part cast because we always have the intention of covering all of the questions. But there are actually a lot of really, really good questions in here today. Not that they're all not good, but there are some that I think are more applicable to going in depth versus doing something really short. And we've sped through them before, but I don't want to shortchange really any of these. I might do some, but there are a lot of really, really good questions here. We'll try to get to as many as we can today, and then we will get to hopefully the rest as long as we remember on Monday. But the first one, which is from Tommy Bonds, and he said, "What is the optimum amount of core work for triathlon, and how to recognize and improve specific weaknesses, i.e., glutes, as an example?" I'm not a huge fan of the word optimum because to me it sounds like that's something that like a triathlete magazine or a lava magazine would put out, like, hey, the optimum workouts for your, like, there is no set number of, and triathlon isn't special. Like, I think we sometimes think of triathlon as like, well, we have to do this very specific special thing because we are triathletes. But really what you should be looking at is your overall, and I say this without like trying to say it, but like your overall body of work and what you need to work on. Like, everyone has areas of imbalances in their body that they think and like they recognize when they run. Like, a lot of people do have very weak glutes, and you can address that by running more hills. I mean, I know Tommy personally because he's an athlete I worked with for the last 3 years. So like that's hill work, that's big gear work on the bike. That's, adding in some accessory lunges, or I think there's a lunge matrix that I'm actually a huge fan of. I think Jay Johnson puts it out in Colorado, but you can look at that on YouTube as a great way, just improving running economy, core strength, and especially with obviously doing lunges, which helps your glutes out. But everyone has weaknesses, and I think that's the important thing, is just to be open to understanding what your weaknesses might be. But there is no optimum amount of core work. I'll be honest with you. I do zero. I do absolutely zero core work.
Yeah. Wow.
And just because, and it's not a time thing. I feel having done this for the last 10 or 15 years, like I've never found, swimming to me is the ultimate core workout. That you do in terms of being like, if you want to be triathlon specific or the Optimum thing, like swimming in general, especially if you do it the right way and you're focused on, great body position. Like to me, that's when I can always tell that my core gets even my lower back, because a lot of people have really poor body positioning and their legs sink or the back arches. They have problems when they're using a pull buoy. And to see their lower back start to fade, spending more time in aero, just paying attention to things like while you're running or even on the bike, is like making sure your belly button is tight when you ride, and kind of just focusing on not, arching and slouching your back, which a lot of people do when they ride a road bike or they ride sitting up. They let their back arch, and they get really, really slouchy, which causes their lower back to hurt. I know Tommy specifically has had, chronic back issues. So there is no optimum for anything. There's no optimum run mileage or bike intensity or FTP or swim, time. Everything is specific to the person. So I think what you have to do is just kind of, if you feel like you have one that's really truly impairing your ability to be or to meet the performance standards that you want, then it's time to kind of strip things down and look for areas of ways you can improve on those areas in a gradual way, not something that you're going to have to quit running to do or quit cycling to do or quit swimming to do, to give up and do this, because at the heart of what you're trying to accomplish is become the best triathlete you can possibly be. But within that is also becoming the best well-rounded athlete you can be. And if you have imbalances, those are something that you need to obviously address.
You brought up some really great points there, dude. I think
Thank you.
No problem. I was actually going to say, because I know Tommy and I have I wouldn't say it's a bad back issue, but it is sort of chronic annoyance, and it's my mid back. And as you know, I've been getting in the water in our endless pool for the last week or so, and pretty consistently. And I mentioned it, I think last cast or whatever, but I've really been working on going slow and reaching out and being long but what you were saying about the cycling and thinking about the core and all that sort of thing, because like, I think when we think of the core or any kind of weight training, we're always like, sort of programmed to think of it in the ways that the bodybuilders used to talk about it. And they would work, they would like zone in, laser in on specific things like the bicep or the upper bicep and things of that nature. But it was all for definition, and it wasn't necessarily for overall strength. And I think that that's the thing with triathlon, right? And your core is like, I've noticed just in a week that just by going under control and really working on that flexibility, but that overall, as we call it, muscle chain connection. And when I say, reaching from or pulling from the lats but like deep in the lats, like down towards the core and thing like that. So I'm thinking about that kind of stuff. And it's really, actually, the last couple nights or mornings I've woke up, my back has been a lot better. I don't know if that's exactly what it is, but there's all that. And I talked to a few people lately about the pull buoy, and I've been using that actually in the tank for now, but I'm in and out of it. But the one thing I think a lot of people get in a habit of is when they swim with the pull buoy, they don't think about activation of the core. So they start just like really using it as a crutch, and then you're in for a rude awakening if you're not swimming hot. Like you always said, whatever tools you're using, if it's a pull buoy or paddles, swim like you normally swim.
Yeah.
Don't make it like
purpose.
A different exercise.
Yeah, swim with a purpose. Don't use it as a method of being lazy. Swim with it to improve what you're lacking on, which for most people is good body positioning. Don't just be a slouch with your legs hanging in your pull buoy and kick. Like, use it with a purpose. And the other thing that I think a lot of us forget about is that if we have an imbalance, it usually means that we have something that's like, a lot of times we can notice this in like cyclists and especially runners or even swimmers. Like you have a weakness a lot of times just because your economy or your overall cycling dynamics or your run form has such a huge strength that you rely on it so heavily that the other part just rarely ever gets worked. Like you see these guys doing, this is one of the things I remember that you were taught and explained to when I was doing high school football, and we were hitting the weight room all the time, was you see people doing like, the guy at the gym doing like, 3 times 6 reps at like 200 pounds of leg extension, like just really, and obviously your quads are huge muscle, then turns over and does hamstring curls at like 90. And you're like, well, dude, like and one of the things we always worked on with our strength trainer was like, you want those to be as close as you possibly can. So he would often tell us, like, if you're continuing to move up with your extensions or whatever it is, then you need to wait until your hamstrings can at least somewhat catch up. Because if you don't, then you're going to be more susceptible to be getting injured, because all you're going to be focused on is quad. And we do that with like when your run form gets sloppy or when you're cycling, like you always end up, you might be a pusher more than a puller. And what I mean by that is you might be someone who slams down with your quads and then literally doesn't use the back end of your pedal stroke. Or you might be someone who generally, because of either your previous experience in sports or how you've done cycling or how your fit has been, you might be more of a puller than you might be of a pusher. So you're using more of your hamstrings and your glutes. Like that's another thing to recognize, is try to really even those things out. And we do that a lot with cycling. It's like working above and below your normal cadence range or their big gear work to really focus on enhancing and kind of magnifying either your strengths or your weaknesses in your pedal stroke, or hill work in your running economy. Like when do things start to fall apart and why, and then kind of work your way backwards on ways to troubleshoot that.
That's really good, man. I think that that balancing is probably super underestimated. I have a hamstring issue, and I'm sure that now, as you're saying that, I probably do overemphasize my quads, and just naturally, I don't know. It's a weird one to think about, but there's something to be said about being under control. And yeah, like I think what that means a lot of times is whenever we try to go fast, whether it's in any sport, we lean on our strength, and we don't. And it's hard to work on that weakness because it's kind of sucks. You feel like you're taking a step back, but sometimes you have to do that, and so you can take, steps forward going down the road in terms of just being healthier and being able to be more available to do things because you're an overall healthier athlete. Mm-hmm. Next question, Charlene Voigt. What is the difference in a bike fit for short course versus long course racing? Great question. And this is, I want to preface that by saying this is not true for everyone or obviously everybody. But for most people, like when you go and get a bike fit, this should be on the questionnaire of things you get out. And when I say bike fit, I don't mean the eyeball fit that the 23-year-old millennial with the flannel shirt and the, and the pants gives you with his, sandals on. That's like, you look about right on the bike. I know that's the only size we have in stock, but it fits you. This is what we need to do. Like, that's not a bike fit. You need to go to someone with really, honestly, like no skin in the game that is going to make you fit the best you can on their bike, because I see it so many times people are on the wrong size bikes, and you need to, it's a huge component that goes into it. We just talked about it kind of in the previous question, was like flexibility and strength. Like how long can you hold positions? And traditionally, if you're doing short course, it's all about speed. It's all about being aero. It's all about being as low as you can on your bike, but also producing as much power. So you're willing to give away some things, but usually short course is more aggressive. It's also dependent on what kind of flexibility you have and what kind of strengths you have. People should be refit like almost every year, depending on if you're riding frequently, because you should become more flexible and you should become stronger in areas so you can hold different positions. So you might find yourself getting lower, and there's also a happy medium between being really, really aggressive and really aero. The more aggressive and aero you get, almost every single time you almost always give up power. But that's also sometimes the fair trade-off, is if you can be really, really aero and not have to produce as much power to still go the same speed or even harder or even faster, then you give up the watts, because it's all about going fast. It's not about producing the most watts. It's about what's getting you from point A to point B the quickest. But what that also usually means is you could be in a very, very aggressive, uncomfortable position. And most athletes, as triathletes tend to do, is they can do something for 5 minutes and be like, this is it.
This is it. This is the fit. This is the one that's like, you can hold anything for 5 minutes. Like you can do anything for 5 minutes and think, you know what, this is it, man. You're not even on the open road. You're just kind of chilling in this position. You're like, this is it. This is my fit. And then you get out there for 3 hours and you're like, this is not comfortable. I can't hold this. This is way too aggressive. My shoulders are too close. My hands are too far up. My lungs aren't getting enough oxygen. My lower back is hurting. And you're like, now what do I do? Well, you can't just change like, I need to change the saddle height. And you're like, well, you can't just change the saddle height because then it changes the geometry of your whole fit. So generally speaking, short courses are more aggressive. You'll probably be a little bit longer and lower. Long course, you might be a little bit higher, producing more power, but it's all about being comfortable. It's also about your ability to intake and consume food. Like a lot of people just can't take in and digest and consume nearly as much fluid and fueling like you need in long course racing when they're really, really aero and really like just compact. They can't get down as much as they want to, and that's obviously a huge component when it comes to long course racing. So there's always, as with all things in life, there's always a give and take. You have to kind of find that happy medium of long course racing is like, do I want to be super aero and be really lean and sleek and then not be able to do so much power, but also be really uncomfortable the whole time? And then, at the 3 hour mark, you're like, I need to sit up. Then you're going to give away all that time and not produce as much power. And then the two biggest things are can I still intake as much nutrition as I need to take in? And then the other thing is like, you see people all the time, and we watch this in so many, like when you're doing videos or we're at races that we're not participating in, is like people get off the bike and they look like Quasimodo, like for the next 4 miles, because their lower back is shot. They've been stuck in a position that they can't. Your bike fit should honestly be almost more about putting you in a great position to be able to run well than anything else. And so many people negate that in how their position, how their saddle height is, or their hip angle is, and they're either behind the bottom bracket or over the bottom bracket, and what muscle group they're using most of, and what their cadence is like, and how close, like there's so many things taken into consideration. So you really need to have like a very lengthy discussion, an open discussion about when you get a fit, what's the most important thing? What is your ultimate goal in the long run? And then make sure that your fit is catered to that specific goal.
A lot of great points there, man. And these two questions really do tie together. As you were talking, I was thinking about like what I usually end up doing. And obviously now I'm recognizing that as a big mistake is I can, like over time get comfortable in whatever fit I have. So that what ends up happening is that I'm doing exactly what we were talking about in the first question, was overworking certain muscles and getting them stronger. And then I'm like, well, I'm okay here. This feels fine. And I usually do feel fine on the bike, but then I get off and I do have that kind of Herman Munster vibe going on off the bike. And it's like, I love what you said that, the bike fit should really be thinking almost more about your run. Cause, it is. It's all, everything's connected in the muscle chain and the event chain and all that kind of stuff. And we have to always keep that in mind.
Stuart Rogers.
Hey,
Stu. I feel like it's been a while since you talked about how to plan a race season. That might be a good topic. Also, what advice do you have for someone bored with training? Maybe just one specific aspect and is looking for a challenge. Two good questions. Obviously one that, one's a very lengthy one, which is how to plan your race season, which we have discussed quite a few times on a couple podcasts. The biggest thing, I'll touch on that very briefly before I attack the next question, because I think that is one that, is something that a lot of athletes are struggling with right now. But, planning your race season is something where you hopefully can plan it around with a coach who will help you put things in the right order. But the other biggest thing is like what fits best in your life. Like people overcommit all the time. They get themselves in trouble. They put pressure on themselves to do these events and do these races in succession that they never should have signed up for in the first place. Look at your life first. When do my kids have soccer? When do my kids not have soccer? When is family vacation? When is not family vacation? When is my busiest quarter for work? When is not my busy quarter for work? Is my spouse, supportive of this? What's a good city to go to? Like, why am I trying to travel all the way across the country when I've got a race that I could go to, 20 miles up the road? Like, especially like if we learned anything from this year, it should be like, be very realistic in your goals and how you want to approach, the races that you do, but be smart and think through how you're going to get there. Just don't think of the day. So you might hear, this race popped up. It's October 1st. It's a new race. I'm jazzed. I'm doing it. Well, what you didn't do was work your way backwards. Like, and I use this example all the time because it happens every year. You have athletes that sign up for Chattanooga 70.3 or any race 70.3 in like May and June, and then months and months and months go by and they're like, coach, forgot graduation. You're like, dude, that's a huge life event. Yeah. You just kind of let slip your mind. That is kind of a big deal. Work your way backwards and look. And most athletes can do this. And if you don't, your coach will hopefully for you. It's like, that's one of the great things about keeping a training log is you can see when athletes have annual dips in not performance, but the willingness or the ability or the availability to be consistent. And you need to look at those and think, oh, well, I usually have dips in my consistency in February, March, and April because that's a really busy quarter for us. I'm usually traveling a lot. I got to meet with, all these different people and have conferences. And so signing up for end of April, May race, probably not a good idea, right? And so you want to push back to something like June. So go back and like do your homework on what you think is going to make for a successful season. The other one is what advice do you have for someone bored with training, maybe just one specific aspect and is looking for a challenge? The first questions I would ask you or have you is ask yourself, why do I feel like I need a challenge and what do I feel like I'm missing? Because a lot of athletes, this year obviously have attacked different challenges. We've had athletes that have gone for all kinds of different endurance endeavors, trail running, ultras, it's from the English Channel, Everesting on Swift. Like there are a million things that you can tackle, but at the end of the day, it's like, what are you really trying to figure out and find? And what are you truly trying to challenge and why? And sometimes, usually when you kind of dig deep and kind of like ask yourself those tough questions and actually write them down, and I have athletes do this to me before, is like, athlete yesterday was like, I'm really stressed. And I was like, okay, list out specifically and outline to me exactly what you're stressed about. Because a lot of times we just kind of throw words out, I'm just really tired. Okay, why are you tired? And can you explain that to me? I know that sounds like a dumb thing, but like, once we work through, like, oh, well, that makes sense. So now I can actually address that and hopefully, like, mitigate the impact of that amount of stress. But for challenges, it's like, ask yourself, like, first of all, what do you consider a challenge? And most people, a challenge to them is, I'm just distracted. I just need something. I'm bored with the non-variety, or I need something to kind of spice things up. I'm looking for a different different whatever it is to kind of get me excited again, because I'm not currently excited with what I'm doing, or I'm not just generally right now excited about much. And I think that's the case for a lot of athletes, that you're just not excited about really anything because you've been training for a long period of time. You didn't get the races. You don't know what to do next year. You can't get in the races you want to get to, or you're not sure if they're going to happen. So it's like, I'm used to being excited. I'm used to being jazzed up this time of the year because at the end of the year, we had a great year. All my races went great, or training's going awesome. It's like, what do I need to feel excited about, or what am I lacking in excitement? And then think, all right, well, are there small, tangible, process-oriented goals? Because I think everyone's first inkling is like, I need a challenge. I'm gonna, what I'm gonna do this year? I'm gonna go ride 400 miles straight. That's my challenge. Well, the first challenge is there are also like really great process-oriented goals that you can to make yourself feel. Because I guess to answer it in kind of a much better, shorter way, is usually what athletes are missing is feeling part of a more tangible outcome that they need on a short-term basis. Not because athletes right now are used to having races and goals, come to fruition after very long years. Right now, it's like every athlete needs kind of something in the interim to kind of fill that void and kind of, satiate themselves with the, overcoming something or achieving something. Because if you're just going through what endurance sports is, a very kind of boring training event, because most of your stuff should be fairly easy, it's more about asking yourself, what is it exactly that you need? And is it some like crazy challenge, or is it to immerse yourself in some more of a process-oriented goal that still yields you a great result in the end?
Man, I totally identify with that question. And I think it was because I started working with you and your thing was swimming, and that was kind of how we met and really kind of forged our friendship and through those early mornings at the lake and stuff like that. And I've just always had a thing for swimming and I've always wanted to be I've had my moments where I've swam pretty well, but like just consistently. And I think lately again, that's what's been coming up in my mind. I've always wanted to be that. I've always talked about this idea of swimming and being strong in the water and getting out feeling good. And we talk about that all the time, but it's one thing to talk about it. It's another thing to really do the work to get to that point. And so like that has become sort of my challenge at the moment, is like and the circumstances have really kind of laid themselves on a platter for me, with my heel, which is getting a lot better. I just haven't said anything about it, but I'm taking time off from the run. I'm really going, I'm not rushing that back. And as much as I do want to run, I've been comfortable with the idea of swimming and just doing some light riding. And then for me, it's that challenge is to get in the upper 10 of my age group coming out of the water, but feeling strong. Because I think like as far as a goal goes, I mean, that to me is like for the overall goals, when I talk about podiums and things of that nature, I think that is like a huge part of it, is getting out of that water up in the front a little bit, but feeling good. And then of course, the next one becomes cycling. It'll be the same type of a deal, just to work it hard and get that done. And, just going back to the first part of his question quickly, as far as planning out. I mean, I remember back when my whole season and it seemed like it was real easy. I just was super simple. I didn't like to over race or do a lot of races. And it was just, for me, I start slow in the beginning of the year typically. So it was always that Olympic. Then I'd do a half and I'd have a full weight in the fall. It was like nicely spread out, and there was it was just sort of a progression the whole way. And I think a lot of times we can complicate it by throwing things in there that maybe throw you off the like, when you say work backwards, I think in terms of like, what's your most important race, or what do you want to do the best at? So start there and figure everything else out around that, of course, with family issues, which I don't have a lot of.
Yeah, check who can watch Maddie. Check it off the list. Check it off the list.
It's a pretty big one.
It is a big one. Next question, Nicole Winger. What do you suggest as a first step for aspiring coaches? Experience versus a certificate, programs and classes? Excellent question, and it's probably piggybacking off I posted yesterday in our closed Crushing Iron group that we're going to, sometime in early 2021, we're going to have a C26 coaching workshop. So if you are a current coach or an aspiring coach and want more details on that, please email me, c26coach@gmail.com, and I'll send you more info here in the next week or two. It's a loaded question, and there's probably going to be, there's a million answers that you'd get from different people, but since you're asking me, I'll answer the way I would answer. The number one thing I think you can always do is, if you're looking to be, or you want to be a coach, is ask yourself why. Why exactly do you want to be a coach? And it was recommended to me to watch from Molly Morgan, or Zoom class today, watch The Playbook, which is, I think, a bunch of interviews with some of the best coaches in sports on Netflix. And I watched the first one last night, which was with Doc Rivers. And one of the quotes that he had in there that really stuck out at me was that he was told when he first started to get into coaching was the rule number one: don't become close, or don't get close with your players. And he said, I've always ignored that, because the answer was because they'll break your heart. And he said, it's true. But if you don't try to get close, or at least leave because let's be honest, like, not every athlete wants to get close with their coach. Like, I have athletes that, like, we barely talk. That's just how they operate. I have some athletes that, like, I know more about their lives than their spouse does. That's how it works. But and I agree, because yeah, they'll break your heart, and you'll hear things you don't want to hear. And if you don't end up working with them for, anymore, it'll be hard. But like, for me, and I'll just speak for me solely, is that you have to want to get into it to just truly help people. And your method of doing that is coaching and through training for triathlon. If you're, but that's not the case for everyone. A lot of people want to get into coaching because they want the accolades. They want the congratulatory, Facebook posts from their athletes after they have races. Like, they want all this, they want athletes to qualify for this or podium appearance. More about themselves. Coaching is a very, very sometimes lonely and selfless endeavor. It is not what you think it is. Like, there's my favorite picture I've ever had of me coaching is not probably what I ever envisioned it would be when I got into this a long time ago, when I was coaching people for free, just because I love doing it. I just genuinely love helping people. is the picture from the bus stop at Ironman Wisconsin last year. I've been up since like 4:00. I've been running around all day, and somebody snapped it at me. I don't know who it was, but it's my favorite coaching because it sums up coaching. I was sitting in this bus stop alone, eating a burger out of a box at like 7:30 or 8:00 on one of the streets of Madison, it was raining, waiting for athletes to come around. Like that is the epitome of like, it's not what you think. It's not getting like the Gatorade bath at the Super Bowl. It's like, it is a long, hard endeavor, because even at the end of that day, you're not even done, because, most of the athletes I work with you on a year-round basis, and it's not that they're never satisfied, is that there's always something like next. Like there's always something. And so I would ask yourself, like, why do I want to get into coaching? Do I want to help people, or do I want, or am I just looking to get extra cash? And what is it about triathlon that wants me to coach for, coach triathletes? I coached tennis long before I coached, and swimming long before I coached triathlon. And I'd have just always loved it. And then in terms of like the certifications and programs things, I have no certifications. There's nothing wrong with them. I think they're beneficial, but my biggest thing has always been experience. And I think not one of the issues, but I think one of the problems that athletes or aspiring coaches can fall into when they take a course or a certificate is there's a start and an end to this completion or this course. You log in online, you take this course, by done, boom, you're a coach. It's the continuing education and the process where you learn things over time, working with swim. That's how the evolution of you becoming a coach literally never stops. You're doing it all the time. Like you're always learning something. And so that's my biggest thing with certifications or online programs or certificates or whatever, is that like it can make you feel like you're done. Like you've achieved it. You're now like, I don't know when I became a coach. Like I just don't. It wasn't like, oh, I'm a coach now. It's an evolution, but experience to me is it. Like you have to have experience coaching a wide variety of people, and you have to love it. And I think that's something, that's why there's also a very high burnout rate in coaching, is that it's a very hard job. And if you take it seriously and you're open to it and you want to get close to your athletes, even though it makes things harder emotionally and mentally for a lot of things, it's like, I think it's because, listen, if your goal going, and this is my spiel, if your goal going into coaching is just to make someone a better triathlete and to get them to be faster, then you're missing the point. Because if you're not hopefully pushing them or holding them accountable or providing them the tools to also hopefully make them a better person, a better spouse, better in their professional world, a better friend, a better, human on this planet, then you are missing the point, and you're missing a huge opportunity to impact someone's life in a positive way. Because if you can do that, then, because like, you see teachers all the time that, that pass away or retire, and all these people pour in, they're like, oh, you made such an impact on my life. It's not like, man, Mr. Mike, like I remember back in 4th grade, we were taking arithmetic, and you really nailed home that multiplication for me. Like it changed my life, man. It changed my life. It's always, you impacted me in a way that changed who I was as a person. It made me believe in myself in a different way. It showed me that I was capable of doing certain things. It showed me that I was actually able to be consistent and follow through with things in life. And you taught me perspective. You taught me balance. You taught me how to be, whatever. And so like, those are hard questions. And I've seen like a bunch of different online courses, and I've had other people take them and show me like the curriculum. And I think the biggest thing, this is something that I'll go through in our C26 workshop, is that like there is the mental and emotional aspect of coaching is so undereducated and underfocused on when it comes to like talking to athletes openly and honestly, and making yourself vulnerable. Like no one wants to do it, so like we just don't talk about it. It's not like you can't practice like talking through really, really hard things with people. So it has to be, what is your level of comfort in doing that, and that's also okay. And there's also not a lot of athletes out there who, not a lot, but not all athletes want that, which is also fine. But ask yourself a lot of questions. It sounds fun and it sounds exciting to be a coach, but it is nonstop, 24/7, never done, until you stop working with the athlete, and that's it. Like, that's just it. Like that's my.
Well, that's a good, yeah. That's the thing about you, man. And you would do this you love it so much you do it for free, and I think that's the well, within reason. So, but it's like, but yeah, that's what I think a lot of people think of coaching as sort of this one-way street, because we grow up and the coach is always telling you what to do and you just kind of go do it and all that sort of stuff. But like, you're always open to learning, and it's really a two-way thing where you're trying to figure things out together. And that's what I agree with that. There's no, you can't trade anything for the experience of that, because sitting here with you, for over 400 podcasts now, and we talk about these issues all the time, the little things that may come up, and it's like, those are the confusing ones sometimes. It's easy just to kind of put a workout out there and just say, go get it. And then, but what happens if somebody's, stressed out or their mindset is off, and how do you kind of work through that together? Those are the things that, it's like that gray area stuff. And, you watch, what is it called? Playbook?
It's called The Playbook. Yeah.
Playbook, and I've been watching Cobra Kai, so I'm learning from senseis, but there is a lot. I mean, it's kind of a crazy thing and cheesy, but there's a lot of really cool lessons in these kinds of things, and I do think it's a two-way street. I think coaching is much more than, especially when we do it. We always talk about it, but like professional football or college football, it's kind of like you just got to get all the people on the same team plowing ahead and just, fired up a lot of times, and just go out and don't take no for an answer. And we're doing this as adults, kind of for fun and trying to be happier and healthier.
Like the biggest, like the best analogy I give is like, there is no NBA Professional Basketball Association head coach certification, or NHL, great, yeah. Or it's like, or football, whatever it is. It's like, you got them through experience, through being assistant coaches, or the film guy, or the recruit. Like, you worked your way up from a long period of time. And that's the biggest thing too with triathlon, is like, you need experience. And then the other thing is like, you need to be coached. You don't have to be, but I think it's incredibly important for athletes to be coached themselves, to gain that experience and work with other coaches. And like, cause that's just how it is. Like, you just work your way up, and it's all about experience. There is no certification for the highest level. It's, you just get there through experience, through education, through, always just really kind of being not complacent with what you know and why you know it, never being willing to change.
It's, getting the nuances.
That's all good. It's 90% science, 10% nuance. I mean, that's just kind of how it is. Chris Sisk, in addition to the C26 Club, can we start a C26 social club? Basically a Zoom call that is the equivalent of the last 15 minutes of our Wednesday calls. We can look into that. I'm not going to be in charge of it because I'm the worst social person ever.
Maybe that's my job.
Maybe that's another Mike management,
Mike
social hour and management inquiries. But yeah, usually I do a Zoom call with our athletes every Wednesday. That's also posted to the online hub. So another benefit of being a club athlete. And that is, the last 10 or 15 minutes is usually about Netflix or what are you watching, or just funny stuff in general. So yeah, we can look into that, but that's not, I mean, if you're looking for like a happy hour, that's Mike's thing. He covers the 7 p.m. to midnight shift at the hub, and I kind of cover the 4 a.m. to 7 p.m. crossover. Mark Jensen, how important are intervals and hill work when running, or more important to just go slow and long? Both are important. And it is, and I think there's a couple questions in here, and I'll give you the analogy that I gave a newer athlete that I'm starting to work with, who asked me about doing a weekly track workout and speed session on Wednesdays. And I told him, we use, baking the cake and building the cake first and putting the icing on ice. Intensity is icing, and that's how I think you should look at it. And base building and aerobic work is the cake, and a lot of people were concerned with just the icing and not the cake. But I said, well, looking back at the last 4 to 6 weeks of your training, if you're hopping in to do track workouts, then you're trying to put icing on a crumb. And then that wasn't meant to be like, taking a shot. It was just, that's just the reality of the situation. Like, you can, not everyone, so many athletes are so obsessed with the speed work or the track sessions or the high intensity trainer road Zwift races. I'm like, have fun. Have you ever tried to put icing on a crumb? It's a mess. It is all you end up with is icing. Like you don't get anything out. There is no substance. There is no base. You want to build like this really, really awesome, do the boring stuff, which is the cake, the stuff that no one can see. Because when you present obviously a really well-made cake, all you see is like the decoration and the fondant and the icing and all, the stuff they put on top. Like, man, that's a beautiful looking cake. Well, the icing itself probably makes up like 2% of the actual cake. At least a good cake, because a good cake is not all about the icing. It's about the actual cake itself. And that's how you should look at it. So there's a place for both. But again, like the icing is the fun part. The speed workouts, the hard stuff, that is the exciting part that gets people's juices flowing. But there's both, and there's great ways to tackle both. And like strength is like, if at least once a week, I try to take the hilliest route that I have from my house. I did it yesterday. And it is a beast of a hill, but I can still run it easy. It's just about working different muscles. I can run flat with my house. I'll try to run trails once a week, and still keep it easy. It just gives you a different stimulus, but you're still keeping it easy, just working different things. But then there's obviously, as you get closer to race day, there's obviously a time and a place to start layering on that icing. You just don't want it to be, you also don't want to do it reverse and have it end up like looking like a Twinkie.
Man, speed work's always been interesting and weird to me. It's like, especially when you're thinking about doing long course racing. And we had this conversation the other day, actually, when I was talking about how I'm really intrigued with the longer, stronger, under control, just being strong about everything. And because part of me knows that, I grew up playing baseball and basketball and all these sort of quick, twitchy sort of sports. And I think a lot of us did. And to me, what I need as far as speed, like the capability to kind of flip that switch and the ability to go there is there. But if I'm not in shape for it or strong enough or whatever to be able to pull it off, and also like, and I know this is deeper than this, but like, when you're talking about running as fast as you can, for example, like all outs, and people get kind of caught up in that. I like the idea of doing that for a very short period of time. Very short. Because we get into this idea like we need to run 800s as hard as we can all the time or whatever. And I know there's nuance to this as well, but like, if I'm running, 5-minute miles or whatever, and it just doesn't really, I'm sure there's some translation in there, but I think the more accurate, payoff is going to be the ability to hold 8-minute miles for a longer time or whatever the case may be. So those are the things that's like,
go and look at a track workout with especially triathletes who very few of them actually get their run mileage up to like 30, 35, 40, 45 miles a week where you want to for long distance racing. Take a picture of them with a track workout in their run form in their stride and be like, whenever are you going to have the same exact run from a stride during your 70.3 Ironman? Probably not at all. And so it's like you need to spend 95% of your time running at trying to produce and increase your running economy so you can have that exact same aerobic base and fitness to hold that form for 3.5, 4 hours and not shell yourself with a form that you're never going to recreate. And unless it's like your last, 100 meters down the red, down the red car from the finishing chute. So it's like, it's the 95 and, 95% and 5% rule. And again, I know it's not like there's a place for it because again, going back to the previous question, that is the icing, that is on the cake, but you gotta have the cake. You gotta have your cake and eat it too. Probably time for our last question, which is a good one. Dave Cravata. And I think we had a couple other affirmations of this question. I haven't swum in greater than 6 months. Got in the pool last week and gutted out 1,800. Got in again today for 2,200 and did the tiniest bit of structure. 850 is easy on whatever rest I wanted. Then 425s all out in 1 minute. When is the time to get back to structured swim workouts? Today. All of your swim workouts, at least 95% of them should be structured. So if you're getting in the pool for the first time, and this is like what almost every triathlete does, I want to see what I've got. So they swim straight for as long as they possibly can. So you didn't really gain any fitness. You just showed yourself how out of shape you are. So structure them immediately, 25s and 50s. Because what you probably did was you swam pretty solid for like 200. And then your form went to shit and you swam awful for 1,600 yards. When you say you gutted it out, which I know Dave, and I love Dave, is like when I hear I gutted it out, it means I had very poor form and overextended myself for about 1,000 yards. So nothing was gained. You didn't improve your technique, which is what swimming is. You didn't improve your ability and form and strength to hold said technique, because the strength that you may have gained was actually poor form, which isn't going to help you hold the proper form that you need to have. Structure them now. 25s, 50s, live by them. Then when you get closer to race day, 100s, 200s, 300s, whatever it is, as you have the ability to. But most triathletes either swim lazy and swim with, they just get in the water and noodle around and don't pay attention, and they never work hard, and they wonder why they can't get faster, and then they don't pay attention enough to technique, or they want to swim 400 or 500s and get out, which there's a place for that, but only once you've got the fitness to hold form for at least 350 to 400 of that. You just can't. You just want to waste your time, especially because there was a lot of questions down here. We'll get the rest of these on Monday, because there are a lot of great ones in here. It's like, if you only got 30 or 45 minutes, do the session that you have. Don't rush through it. Like, people, I don't understand the mentality we've got now with life, which is to rush through everything. And people do that in the pool when they already rush through it anyway. Like, we talked about this on, I think, one of last week's podcasts, in terms of when I do swim analysis here at the Hub. Is like, most of the time I tell people, like, just slow down for a minute. Like, be in a hurry, don't be in a rush. And a lot of athletes are in such a rush to get through something that you really don't get much out of it. You're not present enough. You're not paying attention enough. You're not gaining new habits or creating better behaviors or gaining better strength and more fitness in your technique you're trying to work on. You're just reiterating the same technique and the same fitness you currently have by just trying to be in a rush to get things done. And slow it down and be purposeful with your time. It's already 30 or 45 minutes. Don't rush through trying to get the entire swim set done. Get in what you can. Like, it's like telling, hey, all right, I want you to color, for the next 35 minutes, for this piece of art that I've given you. And he rushes through in 35 minutes to get it done, and it looks like crap. Everything is done, but it's completed. Everything was colored, but it's way out of the lines, and the colors are all mashed up, and it looks terrible, but he got it done. Or do I come back and look at things like, you didn't finish the whole thing, but the 80% that you got done looks freaking awesome. I will take that any day of the week versus just getting it done, just getting it green. Like, just give me a break. Man. Like, it's a societal thing too that we've become so addicted to, is like the completion or the participation. And it's like, there's so much brilliance and greatness that comes from patience and understanding and resilience and seeing things through and knowing that what you got done, as long as you did it right, was good enough, and not always doing more or harder or being in a hurry to complete it always means it's better, always makes it better.
Oh,
sorry, that was all
that one's a great one, man. Because it's always about, I didn't have time to get this done, or just get something out of it, like concrete. That's sort of how I think about it, man. It's like going into this endless pool recently, and this is, it's like that's all my only reference lately, is that you see me, I get in there, and basically it's unstructured in a way, but it's structured because I'm not just getting in there to swim for like 45 straight minutes. I'm messing around with my speed, but I'm always I'm starting with like a couple 200 to 250 type of easy warm up type things. And then what I'll do is I'll, try to equate sort of shorter things with a little more resistance. But my whole thing right now is just is holding the same effort and form at each different speed. And I'm working on, what that means is it becomes a little bit of a tougher pull, and I'm just thinking about things like catch and balance and whatever. And I think that's where it's at. The whole idea of being able to swim 2,000, again, that's sort of like most triathletes probably can do that, like he just said, 6 months off, whatever. Yeah, you could go suck it up and pull that together. But like, what's happening out of that? What are you getting out of that? Is it really going to, because how many times do we see it every year? It's like people swim, and probably swim in ways that you don't prescribe without structure. And then they get in a race and they're like, man, I got to work on my swim next year. But they swam a ton without any purpose.
Yeah, stop practicing on being who you already are and start working on who you want to be.
Yeah, the theme is like we work to our strengths, and we don't have the discipline or I guess the why isn't strong enough sometimes to figure out why we need to work on our weakness or of the stroke or whatever, because it sucks.
And everybody poo-poos swimming. It's like the redhead stepchild of triathlon. It's like, you don't need to swim. You can just, swim a little bit. You'll be fine. It's the shortest part of the race. And like, yeah, tell that to your bike and your run. I've seen athletes, you've seen, like, if you want to see how insignificant swimming is, go stand at the swim exit and see people come out of the water when they look like absolute death coming out. Like it's awful. Like when you watch people like so totally gassed and like, wait a minute. So you're telling me that you've trained up for an event to bike and run as best as you possibly can, but you also know that you either for a 70.3 or full, you also have to swim really well and feel fresh for either 35 minutes, 45, 55 for a half, or an hour and a half in the water with no food, using your whole entire body. Yeah, that doesn't seem like it's important. Are you kidding me right now? Like it is. I'm about to go off on like how not suck at swimming part 7. That's all we have the time for today. Before I go off another rant, always appreciate you. Love the questions that we had today. I guarantee you we will get to them on Monday. There are a lot of questions that I still want to get to, and we'll chip away at those on Monday. But as usual, we appreciate you as always. If you have any questions, comments, concerns, want more info on the C26 Club, contact our team manager, Mike Terali, crushingiron@gmail.com. If you have any other coaches for me specifically or want additional info on the C26 coaching workshop for next year, you can email me directly at c26coach@gmail.com. And for the rest of what we do, coaching camps and community, the club, you name it, it's there, c26triathlon.com.
All right. Thanks, everybody. Appreciate you listening.